So let's talk about gym splits. So there may be people out there that have just started at the gym. They just don't know what the machines are or what exercises or what muscle groups they just want to really target, but they know they want to do better and they don't really have a coach or a person there to help them. How should they get started with building a gym split?
So usually most places that people start is that they'll do all the same exercises and they'll get super motivated for the first couple of weeks and they'll come in, just say 5 exercises that they know how to do, and they'll do those 5 exercises and they'll do the same 5 exercises maybe a day later if they can still walk, and then do it again, then do it again. And for the most part, that's how the original bodybuilding programs were done in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and that sort of stuff. For some people that do maybe 2 heavy sets, or 2 working sets, I should say, and then they'd go to the next exercise. And then those programs consisted of anywhere up to 3 to 10 exercises. So do they work? Well, they did, well, because those people had pretty good physiques in that period of time.
Yeah.
There's, I guess, the biggest thing that a person has to look at is the timeline that they're looking at for their progress. And when you're looking at the timeline, you also got to factor in your recovery time as well. I used to get annoyed with that I'd have to take rest days because I was that keen. I wanted the gains that bad that I was like, if it takes 7 days, guess we're doing 7. And if it takes 8 sessions, well, I guess I'll double it up with another one. So, um,
You're
and,
crazy.
and, that's, and that's great if you've got that amount of motivation to. They call it a second gear or like a fifth gear to just absolutely get throttled. And most people when they start, they've got that gear, particularly when they get a taste of like, wow, like I'm getting this progress, this feels great. And they just want to do it day in, day out. They're like, surely if I apply the same concept when I practice maths and English, if I practice this enough, surely I'm going to get better. Surely I'm going to get
Yeah.
better. Yeah, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. You're just going to get really overtrained.
Yeah,
And
and really sore.
yeah,
Pretty much.
I once had I saw some advice. Someone said like, oh, I'm going to aim to do 50 chin-ups a day. I was like, yeah, I'm going to try to do that too. Oh, that person has an amazing back, so I tried to do 50 chin-ups a day. I think I got to day 6, and I was like, my shoulders are so cooked right now. I feel like they're about to fall off. And I was like, well, that wasn't a very smart idea. So,
No.
like the basic program that a person might do when they don't have any equipment is they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to do some push-ups and I'm going to keep doing push-ups and I'm going to do one set. Like if I think about the early days of doing exercise, it was as many push-ups as you could possibly do. You could tell you couldn't do any more because you didn't know what the meaning of sets was. You didn't know
Yeah.
how many sets, what that looks like. The same as abs. I didn't do anything else because I didn't know how to do anything else when I did them. You just do one
Yeah.
set, you just do a flat stick. And there is warrant to that. You could do your
Yeah.
program like that. It's probably in terms of numbers, it's going to be limiting after a certain while. So looking at time frame, looking at how much time you have. So it's no good coming up with a 5-day gym program if you can only make the gym 2 days out of that 5.
Yeah.
That would technically mean you'd take 3 weeks to get full cycle around to get those 5 programs done if they were different,
God. Yeah.
which isn't exactly optimal, but it really depends on the intensity. Like some
Yeah.
people run a program, they run a 5-day program, 2 days off, and they, as by the numbers, like if you look at it, that your numbers say, okay, well, I need to train Monday to Friday and have Saturday, Sunday off. Yeah, okay, well, that all works well in theory. So what happens if you get busy on a Friday, you don't make it, or you're sick Thursday night, it affects you can't go training Friday. So then what do you do on the Monday the following after? Do you do Friday's workout? Does the
Yeah.
body know what Friday is? Does the body know what Monday is? The body actually doesn't know what either of them are.
Yeah.
Realistically, all the body knows is that if I'm putting it under pressure, so responding to stimulus, but if I'm putting it under pressure, if I'm going to put something
Yeah.
heavy on it, if I'm going to make it work, well, then it's going to have to work a bit harder. And what that looks like is, well, if it's a Smith machine, maybe it's some arm curls, maybe it's some
Yeah.
chest press. So if I do it regular enough, then it has to do one or two things. It's either going to fail or it's going to adapt.
Yeah.
One or the other. Oh, well, it could have some crappy form in there, but generally that's usually the way. If it fails, then it's probably going to break.
Yeah.
But if it
Yeah, definitely.
adapts, adaptation for programming takes a while. In the initial stages, obviously, you can get those newbie gains of anywhere up to 5 to 10 kilos in the first couple of years. But as we've discussed previously, those adaptations take a bit longer because when it's done naturally with the right nutrition plan, then yeah, it's a matter of, hundreds of grams or not in kilos. So if we look at the number of days, like I said, the body doesn't know what Friday is. So just say you don't train on a Friday. Okay, well then when do you pick it up? And we've had discussions about this before when you said to me, oh, so I can manage to get these 2 sessions in, but I can't make the Wednesday session or I can't make the Friday session.
Yeah.
But and you said to me, oh, I can make it on a Sunday. I said, well, it's fine. Do it on a
Gotta
Sunday
fit. Yeah,
then.
yeah. You gotta fit
Because
out. And I remember stressing out, be going,
yeah,
oh no, my muscles are gonna be so fatigued. I'm not gonna be able to do this, do that, And I came to you, I'm like, I can only do this. You're like, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, really? you know? So
well,
yeah,
you
it
could
worked.
mind if yourself so much about it and drill yourself into the ground and go, oh my God, I miss Wednesday's workout. It's the end of the world. And trust me, I've done that as well. I've done it more than once. I've missed weeks of training because I haven't had access to a gym, and it's
Yeah,
messed with my head so much
yeah.
that I've like have a
It's a good
million.
addiction though.
Yeah,
It-
well, sometimes if you get a bit
for the
of
majority,
clarity
for
and
the
some
majority.
distance away from it, it's okay. But if it really gets you down in the press just because you don't get to make the gym, like last week, we had weddings and all that sort of stuff, and we had family coming over for Easter and that sort of thing. And I literally wrote off a whole week's worth of training because I was like,
Yeah,
I was getting to a really good point. I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. Then I had the break, and I was like, well, I guess I'm having another deload.
yeah,
Because every time I get sick, generally ends up being an unstructured deload week because I'm generally out for 4 days. I'm like, oh, well, there's another deload. So I'm like,
yeah.
means I have to start, the load wise has to start later. So the program has to be able to fit the number of days that you can commit to. If you can't
Okay.
commit to it, then there's no point in actually following it. Like you can get programs off the internet. They're 3 days, 1 day, 2 day, and someone else follow them. Do they work? They probably do. I haven't tried them all. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. But it also really depends on who's wrote the program because as you told me this before, it really depends. Like if a person who's been training for 6 years writes a program for themselves, that isn't going to suit someone who's been training for a year and a half. It really depends on the person and the person who wrote the program. So, and and you can also like if you're just starting out and you find a program online and you're like, oh yeah, this one actually works for me, you can also just like edit it to yourself, like, oh, I want to hit let's say chest, and I really don't like doing barbell chest press, but I like dumbbell, or so on and so forth. Just like, or with abs, I really hate doing regular crunches, but I really like doing crunches with a plate, or so on and so forth. But if you get what I mean, there, it really depends on I just can't stress this enough. There's no sure, except for form and the basic science, there is no really perfect way of going about it. It just depends on the person. And that took me so long to figure out because I just spend nights at the computer just like looking around, trying to find the perfect nutrition plan, the
Yeah.
perfect um workout split. And then one person would say this and then another person would say that, and I'd be like, oh, which one do I choose? So it at the end of the day, it depends on you and what you can do and your body and your lifestyle,
Yeah,
basically.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like there is if a person had to do a minimalist gym program, then the easiest way to split that up would be to do a push movement, a pull movement, and a leg movement. So
Yeah.
a press of some description, whether it's push-ups, chest press, dumbbell press, doesn't make a difference. A pull motion, so a bent over row, lever row, seated row, lat pull down, and then a leg movement, leg press, squats, RDLs. Well, that's more hamstring dominant, but it really depends on, like I said, if a person only has a couple of days a week, then the goal has to be in line with how much time you're willing to commit. If a person says, I want to be the next teenage or Mr. Under 21 ACT or New South Wales or Queensland champion, well, you're going to need to put in more than 2 days a week training, because trust me, the other guy that actually wants it more than you is probably putting in 5 days a week, and he's prioritizing all these other things. So whatever the goal is, it has to be realistic. It needs to be measurable to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So if you can only put in 2 days a week, what's the most efficient way for something like that? If I had to program someone for 2 days a week, I'd probably be more likely to say, well, why don't we do 2 days a week, maybe spread them out apart, maybe 3 days apart. So maybe one on a Monday and one on a Thursday, so that you got a couple of days rest either side. It's not too back to back. And I'd probably be more inclined to do probably a total body workout. So
yeah, definitely.
Does that look like if they've only got half an hour to train? Because that's the other thing. Not everyone has 2 hours to spend at the gym. Not everyone wants to spend 2 hours at the gym. So the total body workouts are great because, like a push movement, whilst it works your chest, it also works your triceps. So you got 3 muscles in your triceps and you got a number of muscles in your chest. And then you're like, well, the pull movement works your biceps, predominantly 2 muscles, including your forearms, mainly works your back. So then you're like, well, do I need to do arm curls? Do I need to do tricep exercises? The answer is, well, if it's not really if you're just looking at getting fitter and stronger 2 days a week and you only got 20 minutes, well, you probably won't be doing arm curls. You won't be doing triceps.
No.
And will you be doing calves? Probably not. Probably not, because there's other movements that give you bigger bang for buck. So like I said, would you be even doing abs? No, because
Probably not.
if you're going to do squats, you have to brace yourself. If you're going to do push-ups, you still got to brace yourself. It requires a certain amount of core. If you want to do abs, great. But if it's for the purpose of getting a flat stomach or getting a six-pack, well, maybe you might want to look at your diet if that's the case.
Yeah.
You can do 1,000 sit-ups. It's never going to get you six-pack abs. Sure, it's going to give you bigger muscles, but if you keep overeating on certain foods, well, it's not going to work.
They're going to give you visible abs.
No. Like in the 90s, there used to be all these. There probably is more now. I don't really watch a lot of daytime TV, but there's those ads where they're like
6-minute abs and stuff.
Yeah, you can get these abs in 6 minutes, and all these machines, and all those machines. These people talk about, oh, how great it changed my life, how many dress sizes I've lost, how many pant sizes. But the part that they don't necessarily really drum home that hard, any of those things will work. Absolutely any of them. But the other thing that they don't talk about as much is they're like, well, you need, in small print down the bottom, is that you need to follow their meal plan.
Yeah.
That's the catalyst. That's what's going. Then the person can go and get lean and feel good about themselves. They're not going to look like The Rock or that other bald guy that does the Fast and Furious. What's his name? Vin Diesel. You're not going to look like
Vin Diesel.
While using those machines that are on daytime TV. But you can definitely get fitter, lose weight, even if you're walking, whether it's jogging, whether it's swimming, if you're following the right nutrition plan. That's just how it works. So back to what I said, if you only had 2 days a week, if you only had 20 minutes, well, then if that person wanted to lose weight, then their focus would have to be on making sure that their eating is more on point, because you're spending more times eating than you are training. So they have to balance like that. You can't just expect that I'm going to do 2 sessions and all of a sudden I'm going to lose all this weight. It doesn't work like that. So if in terms of structuring one, if you've got the time, 5 days, a lot of times people follow well, I followed, particularly in the early days, a bro split, chest day, back day, legs day,
Yeah.
arms day, shoulders day. You're like, well, what's wrong with that? Yeah. The
Ah,
only
it's all,
issue with doing that is that you can end up doing the same exercise more than once.
yeah, very much.
So like,
Because it's so, yeah.
well, there is. So like for argument's sake, if I had to list off the amount of chest exercises there are, just off the top of my head, you got a chest press machine, you got a dumbbell bench press, you got a barbell bench
Barbell.
press, and then there's variations of that: incline, decline, and flat, both on dumbbell,
Yeah.
both on bench. You've got you got a low
Flies.
chest, you got a low chest push. You can get a high chest push, which hits more shoulder.
Yeah.
Then you're like, well, which one do I pick? So the main if I had to just pick one chest exercise, and you could either do a push up, a flat bench, or a dumbbell press on a flat bench. If you've got the time, sure, do some incline. But if you're going to do, just say, if you've got a chest day, if you're going to do bench press and you've got access to dumbbells, so you might start with flat dumbbell and then you move to incline dumbbell press. For the main reason being that the program needs to be structured. You put the bigger exercise first, so generally made up of the compound movements. So your deadlift, squat, bench press, bent over row, overhead press, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That first, and then you follow that with accessories or smaller muscle movements, like maybe some dumbbells to get the stability in the joints. And then if you've got time, maybe pair it with the opposite or similar muscle groups. So the minor muscle groups. So for chest, it's triceps. You might do chest and tricep because you carry the fatigue over. Some people do chest and biceps on the same day. I think you mentioned doing chest and biceps. Now, the great thing about doing that is that you do your chest day, you cook your chest. You can't really cook your triceps, but I'm sure they're a little bit cooked. But
I do.
your biceps are still fresh.
Yeah.
And then wherever your back day is, hopefully you've got enough still in your arms that it doesn't affect your back day. That's the only downside with doing the opposite, the major muscle group with the minor opposite.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people do a legs day where they split quads and hamstrings apart. Now, you're never going to completely cut them completely out, but doing a barbell squat more so hits your quads. It'll hit your hamstrings to a very small component. It's not going to completely narrow them out.
Yeah.
You'll use an RDL mainly is glutes and hamstrings, and your calves. When you do calf raises, there's certain angles that are more effective than others. So putting them on certain days. So deciding whether you want to pair exercise together. So you might do chest and tris, back and bis. You might do legs. You might want to fit it all onto one over 3 and then rinse and repeat after a day's rest. That's another way to do it. So you could do legs and shoulders. And then you're like, well, what about abs? Well, you can put that on and you can put that in if you have time. Really depends. Most people probably struggle. Where you fall short is depending on how much rest time you have. If you have 10 exercises and you want to get it done in under an hour, well, you won't be lifting very heavy. I can tell you that much right now. You'll be supersetting like crazy. You'll be like, bang, 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 bang. And the downside is, like some of the total body programs that I've done, if I'm doing heavy deadlifts or heavy RDLs or something, my squat workout takes out of an hour, just the squats. When it's heavy, it's probably at least half an hour. Like that's the majority of with your compound exercise, the majority of your workout time should be taken up with your compound exercise. And if it's not, well, you're probably not pushing it heavy enough. That's where you're going to get the bang for buck. That's the structure of the meat and potatoes of an actual program that needs to exist, because you recruit a lot more muscle fibers by doing those heavier compounds, because you can load the body up more and then hopefully get more bang for buck. So going full circle, if I had to do total body, chest, back, legs, Well, I would make sure that I'm not just say for one workout, I'd be doing bench, maybe. I might do some rows. Maybe I do some squats on one. And on the other one, you go chest, back, legs again. I might do dumbbell incline so that I'm not just always pressing if I've got access to it. I might do single arm lat pull down if I just did some rows.
Yep.
And I might do maybe a different variant, maybe some lunges or some Bulgarian split squats so that I get that bang for buck. I probably wouldn't necessarily do leg extension, leg curl, because if you're doing lunges, well, you tend to you want to do something where you recruit more muscle fibers and less, particularly if you're time restricted.
Yeah.
Then if you're doing, but then another thing to look at, some people do is total body training. That was a really big buzz on the internet and YouTube in about 2019. And
Okay.
the main reason that is they're like, well, the philosophy of following a chest workout or a legs workout, you say to your mate, or you say to a client, what's your goal today? What do you want to do today? It says to train my legs until I can't walk anymore. You're like, yeah, no ways. You end up getting that much damage that you end up doing to the muscle, like in a good way, damage, that you can hardly straighten your legs and you struggle to get to sleep at night because you've done too many leg curls and leg extensions because it's cramping. And
I've been there.
yeah, 100%. Same. Done it heaps of
Been
times.
there, done that.
Absolutely loved it. Now, you can't do that when you do total body training. It doesn't work. And if you do, you'll get to about week 4, week 3, and be like, man, my knees hurt. My back's sore. I need some dry needling. I need so much work done. Like, the thing is, when you go and see a chiro or get dry needling or go and get massage done, they're good for preventative. But if you're getting them done because you've knocked yourself around that much that you've jumped weights too quickly, and once again done all that too, then you probably need to relook at how quickly you're progressing your weights. Like if you could lift a certain weight maybe 2 years ago, just say it was a deadlift, and you could do 4 plates aside, so 180. And you haven't deadlifted in ages, you won't be pulling 180 for a while because it's going to, if you took you 6 months to get here, it's probably going to take you another 6 months. But the ego says, nah, surely I should be right. I did it.
No,
I did
I've
it.
done it before, can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, righto. Then when your back jacks up on you and then you can't move, and then you go and back it up with squat day, and then you compress your spine even more, that's going to make it even more awesome. So, so with the total body training, if you have to split that up, the best way to probably look at that is to focus on certain muscle groups on each day. So on one of the days needs to be a bit more of a chest day. And that would mean when you prioritize the exercise, you'd probably put that in terms of rank, you'd probably put that one first. That way you're fresher, you're not as fatigued. And then you got to look at what the order is for the other exercises to how much fatigue am I carrying over? When people talk about total body, you're not going to do full back workout, full leg workout, full arms workout. It's just, that's not going to work like that. Well, it can work well on paper, but it's not going to work well in practice. So there's certain movements. So like for argument's sake, you might only hit your arms 3 times in a week, like a bicep tries. You might hit your triceps 3 times a week. Your biceps might be it might be Monday, Wednesday, Friday for triceps, and it might be Thursday, Friday just for biceps. But there might be, depending on a person's development, if they're really trying to bring up a certain component, so just say they want a bigger back, they might hit their back 3 times in the week, and they might hit their chest 2 times a week. And then you've got to look at the other components. If you try to hit them all at the same time, it's not impossible, but we all grow at different rates. So figuring out where that mix comes in. So one day, you're not going to necessarily squat 3 times a week, yet there are programs that you can do it, that people squat, particularly powerlifting programs. But for the everyday bodybuilder, you try to mix that up. So like you carry fatigue from your lower back from doing barbell squats, but if you went and did some higher rep on the leg press, That could work. You could do
Yep.
some leg extensions on a different day. Do some leg curls on another day. You could do calves on another day, particularly if your legs are completely fried from everything else. So you're still doing legs, but you're not actually doing all the leg.
Yeah.
That's the part when people talk about total body training, they don't necessarily say that because you have this idea in your mind. You're like, oh wow, let's go and do everything.
In one day. See what happens. What's
Yeah,
the
see
worst
what
that can
happens. Yeah, see what happens. You won't be able to straighten your forearm.
happen?
And that was the thing that I run into when I dabbled in a bit of CrossFit training. Is that I was like, yeah, surely more is better, all right? No, I think I got 4 to 5 weeks in, and from doing so much overhead pressing and single arm lifting and raising, I couldn't hold this positioning anymore because my forearms are too tight. So yeah.
Ouch.
But yeah, so you can do a couple of times a week, could be 3 times a week. If it's 3 times a week, most people, if they're more or less pretty serious about their training, 4 times a week is probably where most people fit
Yeah.
most things in.
Okay.
So 2 days either side, maybe. So maybe Monday, Tuesday, break Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, something like that. Or you might say, okay, I need to fit in a fortnight, 8 sessions in. So there's 14 days in a fortnight. Now, where do I fit those 8 sessions in? And you make a rule. I have to have 1-2 days apart, particularly of blocks.
Yep.
And that'll give me enough time because that allows life to get in the way. It allows other things to get in the way. If there's no flexibility for the programming, then the programming is about as useful as the piece of paper it's written on. It's useless.
Yeah.
So there has to be flexibility for it.
Okay. Yeah.
And that has to be factored into that. Or if you do a block and you got five sessions and you miss one, well, I guess you're going to have to you're going to have to kind of stagger the next block.
Yeah.
Make the next block 6 sessions where you just done 4 the following. Then the problem is you end up doing one training session twice.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what's wrong with that? Well, then you carry the fatigue over for the next following week. So you could completely skip that session and just press the reset button and go amnesia. Like, no, didn't happen. All good. No worries.
Yeah.
Another way to do it. Just take the rest day.
Yeah.
You're not going to shrink because guaranteed, okay, should you try to lift what you lift better than what you did before? Probably not if you miss the session. So there's also that as well, to have that realistic expectation in terms of, okay, well, I was able to do this last week. Am I going to match it? Or am I going to do a bit more?
Yeah.
Figuring out where that fine line is to how hard you can redline it to how far you need to pull back.
Yeah. So progressive overload in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. God damn, that's a lot of information. That's fantastic. I'm just in here processing it all. I'm just like, whoa. I'm gonna study this more.
Yeah,
But good.
nothing wrong with that.